What's going on YouTube? So Mason recently spent some time with the all-new 2026 Nissan Sentra, an affordable sedan with some stiff competition. But now we have it back in Kentucky, so we're excited to spend a full week with it so we can fully test it out. So, is this SR an unbelievable deal for 25 grand? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Now, like always, let's start off with a quick spec dump. Under the hood of the Sentra, there's just one engine option. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It makes 149 horsepower. That's paired to a continuously variable transmission, and the combined fuel economy is 32 mpg.
Now, the base price of the Sentra is just $22,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, we're excited. This is a real-world 7-day review, so we can get our official sound level reading, talk about real-world fuel economy, as well as our impressions after living with it this week.
But we'll close up the hood because a big part about why you might buy the Sentra is the stylish exterior design. So the bold new exterior design really starts up here in the front. Where the previous Sentra, I think, was very vanilla looking, this one definitely adds a lot more style, especially when we're talking about the trim we have today. So this is the SR trim level. You can get this starting at $25,000, and it gives you a lot of style, including this really large grille. You can see it covers up most of the front end design. It's fully gloss black, and I think overall it looks quite nice. Again, it's very bold. Now, also another nice element is here at the headlights. So surprisingly, Nissan gives you projector LED headlights as standard equipment on every single Sentra in the lineup. We also have an LED daytime running light and turn signal indicator. And then over here on the side, we have these lights that look like fangs, which also have animations on your upper trim levels. And as we walk to the back, I can see a lot of Maxima design influence, actually. Rest in peace, Maxima.
Yeah, no, I think it looks really quite good. Now, let's break down some of the individual design touches. Now, before we get into that, I do want to point out this car is pretty dirty. Yes, we are aware of that. It was washed actually prior to us filming this video, but we just had an ice storm, so there's salt everywhere. So this is as clean as we can get it. Now, as far as the design elements, we have a spoiler up here at the top. That's special for the SR. And we have some very premium LED taillights, that's for sure. So you might not expect to have a full LED unit on a affordable vehicle like this, but it is fully LED, your brake light, your turn signal, and your reverse light. And then as we drop down to the lower fascia, it's pretty aggressive. The SR is also going to add in this exhaust outlet to kind of spice up the design.
Now, another thing you might like about the SR is the fact that this has the largest wheels in the entire lineup, even though it's not the top trim level. These are the 18-inch gloss black alloys with a little bit of contrast accenting on the outside edges. You also have, again, other sizes that fall below this, 17 and 16-inch alloys, but I think these look really nice with the overall design. The mirrors are going to be blacked out, and you have standard blind spot monitoring on all trims, although heating is reserved for the SL and the SR.
Now, continuing on with the premium design, here at the side, the vehicle is 183.3 inches, and I like the fact that you can get a two-tone roof. That's something that really most of the rivals do not include. Things like the Corolla and Civic don't offer that, and it spices up your overall look. It's, I believe, just here on the SR trim that you can get that, though. Now, as far as safety systems, Nissan gives you 2 out of 4 active safety features as standard equipment on every single model. If you choose the SL, that will give you the other 2 as standard, or you can also option them on to this SR. Guys, there's a lot to talk about on the inside, so let's dive into that. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then, we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from our long-term vehicle videos to our side-by-side comparisons, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the inside. First, here's our key fob. It's Nissan's typical key fob. You have an intelligent entry system and remote start on the fob for the SV trim and above. That means you can walk up to the vehicle and just grab behind the handle to unlock it, or actually today we have the automatic walk away lock and unlock. So when I approached it, it just went ahead and unlocked the door. All right, so let's check out the new interior. Of course, even though this is one of Nissan's very most affordable models, you'll notice a lot of common elements with some more expensive vehicles. And before we get into those types of details, let's start with the seats. So standard is going to be a cloth seat, including on the SR. So normally you'll have what is called premium cloth seating. However, today we have the premium package equipped on today's example, which means that we switch that out for a leatherette seat. You can see that we have a black two-tone finish here with accenting on SR and different stitching and details throughout. I think it looks quite nice. The other thing we're very impressed with is the seat comfort. They don't skimp out, even though this is an affordable vehicle. It's still got those nice zero-gravity seats. As far as the adjustments, normally it would be a manual seat, but we have that option package, which gives us the power seat with 4-way lumbar support. And we'll go ahead and climb inside. Now looking around at the rest of the cabin materials, you'll see leatherette over here on the armrest, again with that double stitching detail. The top part of the door trim is a soft touch plastic. As we move to the upper dash, this is all a soft touch plastic as well. We have kind of a textured trim through the center section. You'll notice this little bar here. We have some ambient lighting that also goes through here. That's optional for about $400 extra. And it is going to be leatherette padded actually along the console. Everything in here feels pretty solid as well, which there's some compact cars that don't feel so solid. So that's good. We'll go ahead and start it up now with the standard push button start. Now that it's all fired up, we can get into individual details, starting with the gauge cluster. Most models come with this dual 12.3-inch screen arrangement, so that is a lot of screen for the price point, if you're into that. And you can see with the gauge cluster, again, 12.3 inches. It's reconfigurable with some different kinds of design options, including the ability to change the entire meter view. Now, as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got that new Nissan design. It's actually 2-spoke and it's flat bottom. I think overall feels pretty nice in the hands. The buttons are a little bit different as well. One thing we observed this week is this button being sideways is a bit weird when you're making some adjustments to the display, but not a big deal. The steering wheel itself, manual tilt and telescoping, and we also have the optional heating since we have the SR Premium package. Now, moving to the console next, let's open it up and see how much storage we have inside. You'll see we got some donuts in there to measure that, as that is our logo. And we have 15 donuts inside there today, which is very strong for a compact car. In front of that, we have a couple cup holders and another storage cubby, and that also is a wireless phone charging pad with 2 USBs above it. The shifter is going to be very conventional, just pull back for drive. No paddle shifters on the steering wheel. And then we go into reverse. You will be surprised, I think, to see this 360-degree camera system. Again, this is part of the SR Premium package, so the standard SR doesn't get this. That being said, I really don't expect a 360 camera on any compact car, no matter what the price point is. And then back behind that, you have your electronic parking brake with brake hold, as well as your drive mode controller. Next up, let's take a look at the climate controls. So these are actually inside of a touch panel. You have a manual climate set up on the base trim, and then as you move up the structure, you go to a single zone automatic, and then finally the dual zone automatic setup. When you make those adjustments, you get that little sound there to give you some feedback, and then the temperature actually shows up there. Turn that fan back down. It is, like I said, dual zone automatic, and synced in with that, you have an automatic function for your heated seats. That's part of the SR Premium package, or standard on the SL. Then above that, we have physical knob for the audio system. This is an 8-speaker Bose sound system, and let's give it a sample. Yeah, pretty good. Definitely in this segment of vehicle, the sound system can be something that is skimped on, but Nissan has given a pretty good sound system. I think it fills up the cabin well and has plenty of bass. All right, so let's move into this area here and discuss the other display. I already told you it's 12.3 inches, and this has one of Nissan's newest software systems. So the main thing that you might be concerned about is wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That will be included on all but the base trim, where you will have a wired connection, instead. Let me navigate to Nissan's actual system and show you what that looks like. You have pretty nice graphics. Overall performance is pretty decent. There's a little lag here and there. No built-in navigation on this tester. Up top, we have an auto-dimming mirror. And then I'll go ahead and open up the sunroof here. This is optional on the top trim levels.
All right, so let's talk about the rear seats of the Sentra. Now, typically when it comes to compact, affordable sedans, you get almost no features in the rear. And I'm happy to tell you, at least on the Sentra, you do have quite a few features and also pretty good space numbers. So what we're sitting at is 35 inches of legroom and about 37 inches of headroom. Those are going to be pretty good numbers. It's not necessarily the class leader. The Honda Civic is pretty big for this segment, but overall, it's still plenty of space. I'm 5'9" for reference, and this seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and look at that. We have 7 inches of knee space. So even if you're taller, you won't really have much issue here in the back. Also, my feet can easily slide up underneath of these seats. And speaking of the seats, I don't know if Drew mentioned it in the front or not, but these seats in the back are actually really comfortable, and I have to applaud Nissan on that because a lot in the segment will cheap out and make the seats as hard as a rock. Also, a lot in the segment will cheap out and not give you an armrest. That's included on R and SL trim levels. We have a USB port right here. No vents, though, so I wish they had included some vents. But over on the door trim, we have a hard touch upper part, hard touch in the middle section. However, we do have leatherette on the armrest, which I like. And there's quite a bit of door storage. You'll see down below it easily swallows up a pretty big bottle. Now let's go ahead and check out the cargo area. In order to get back here, they have included a button. And let's go ahead and see the overall cargo space. 14.3 cubic feet is what you can expect here on the Sentra. Those are good numbers, actually, as a matter of fact. Some of the options might be slightly bigger, but that is one of the largest options that you can get in this affordable sedan space. And speaking of affordable sedans, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com. We've looked at numerous vehicle segments on the market and ranked them in individual categories that might matter more or less to you. Things like cargo space, interior technology, powertrain choices, and very importantly, value, so you can make informed buying decisions regardless of what segment you're looking at. Now, as far as the Sentra's features here in the cargo area, the seats do fold a 60-40 split. Some in the segment actually just give you a single piece, so it's nice that it's 60-40. 40 inches of room behind the seats with those fully upright. And then let's go ahead and get the opening here. 39 inches wide. The height is 21 inches tall. And I'll get the load-in height as well for good measure. 27 inches for that. And if we lift up the floor, you will not see a spare tire on this model. So that is something to keep in mind. A lot in the segment are not including that, though, so that's not too uncommon. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Nissan Sentra. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, including getting our official Kentucky sound level reading, as well as discussing things like real-world experienced fuel economy. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration.
All right. That was our acceleration to 60 miles an hour with the new Nissan Sentra. So, as we talked about a little bit with the spec dump at the beginning, the powertrain is just one version. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, naturally aspirated. You have 149 horsepower and 146 pound-feet of torque. Now, in terms of the overall acceleration, it's not going to blow you away with power, but most things in this segment do not. It is pretty much the same powertrain as the last generation.
Yeah, I have to say it's a fine powertrain actually compared to when I drove it in Arizona. I feel like this might have been slightly faster. We were on a completely flat surface for that 0 to 60 right there. It's okay. Like Drew said, it's not going to knock your socks off, but it's enough to keep up with the flow of traffic, that's for sure. One thing I do want to point out is that there is no other powertrain option on the Sentra. So you can't get a turbocharged model. You also can't get a hybrid or anything like that. So some of the competition will include options along those lines, and the Sentra is just going to be a one-size-fits-all powertrain solution. And like we said, it's adequate, but nothing too exceptional.
All right, and we can go ahead and talk about the other element of the powertrain. That's the transmission, of course. So this does have a CVT. As far as things that Nissan said they did to this, well, they retuned the transmission for the new generation to give it a more natural feel. I will say the shift simulation, pretty realistic when you're accelerating hard. And the other thing is that they really tuned it to be quite responsive. As soon as you kind of tip into it, I think that it kind of makes this vehicle feel a little bit more powerful than it actually is, just because of the throttle tuning as well as the CVT's responsiveness.
Yeah, and I will point out that the power is only going to be routed to the ground via the front wheels. So that's something that I'm a little disappointed by. I wish Nissan had added the option of all-wheel drive, but for 2026, this new generation just has the front-wheel drive, which is something that some of the competitors are including. The Mazda 3, the Toyota Corolla, for instance, can add all-wheel drive. All right, let's get the sound level reading going 55 miles an hour. 64.2 decibels is what we are sitting at in the all-new Sentra. Now, I don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to the competition. I can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. However, I do kind of know just off the top of my head that that's going to be a pretty loud sound level reading, that's for sure. I do, obviously want to say that this segment, sound deadening is not the main focus. They do kind of cheap out on that in a lot of respects. However, I am a little disappointed that it's 64 decibels. I think that's kind of close to what we were testing at in Arizona, and we are here back home in Kentucky. So that's a little disappointing. It's definitely not going to be the quietest cabin in this segment. Things like the Kia K4 and Mazda 3 will have a little bit more sound deadening. And let's take a second to discuss ride quality. So when you live with a car for a week, you have a lot of opportunities to drive it over different road surfaces. And these compact sedans can be a little bit on the uncomfortable side, but the Sentra, I feel like, has a really good suspension setup. It does a good job of soaking up the bumps. As you can see, this road that we're on right now is actually pretty rough. We're hitting a couple potholes in the road, and it's doing a good job of soaking most of that up before it gets into the cabin. And one of the things that I think is kind of the secret sauce with the Sentra are these zero gravity seats. This model truly has some really comfortable seats, especially for the segment. You can get definitely some options that aren't very comfortable, and this Sentra is going to be a good option for the segment.
Now, as we go around a few corners here on this back road, I can mention the dynamics of this vehicle. It's not really the primary focus of the Sentra, but it has a pleasant dynamic to it. I think it feels reasonably sporty. The steering is responding as soon as I go off center, so that's nice. Yeah, so it's not as sporty as, say, the Civic or the Mazda 3. Those are the benchmarks of the segment, but it definitely, I think, would outperform a Corolla.
Yeah, and let's also discuss fuel economy. So I'm sure you're curious as to this. I'll read the EPA numbers off first before I give our real world fuel economy. But we're sitting at is 33 miles a gallon for the S and SV. Now, if you choose the SR, it goes down to 32 miles per gallon. That's certainly not a bad MPG figure, that's for sure. However, some of the options that offer hybrids, such as the Civic and Corolla, will be vastly more than that. The Civic is coming to mind right now, about 49 miles per gallon. So that is an area that you will be, paying a little bit more on this model to keep on the road just because you have worse fuel economy. Now, what's our real-world experience fuel economy? Well, the timing of this video, we have not completed our mileage, so we'll go ahead and insert in a text box with our full fuel economy number on this model. As you can see, it has been a really cold weather, so sometimes that can negatively impact that number, but we'll go ahead and get the most realistic figure that we can for you guys and put it on the screen. And we were speaking about the fuel economy, and that actually is going to be today's airball. The fact that they're not offering another powertrain, specifically a hybrid, I think would have been a really good move for Nissan. We actually drove the Qashqai model, which has their e-power system, and it's just a great reminder of how Nissan could hopefully integrate some hybrids in the future, and I think that would really help this Sentra model out to get the really great fuel economy. Also adding all-wheel drive, I think, would be a big benefit for the segment.
Yeah, for sure, especially on,
yeah, when it's all icy.
A snowy week like we've been experiencing to this time around. Let's go into the slam dunk as well, and that's got to be the value, especially if you want to spend kind of in that middle $20,000 range. This Sentra really is delivering a lot. That's a price point that is just so underutilized these days. Almost everything out there on the road is just overshooting that vastly, and I really appreciate that with every single option ticked, this is still just a little bit above $30,000.
And after our snowy week in Kentucky, do we like it better, the same, or worse? Well, everyone here at the Car Confections team can agree that we like the Sentra better. It certainly was a car that we were pretty impressed with, or at least I was in Phoenix when I first drove it, and after living with it, I think that continued to impress me over the course of the week. And let's talk about pricing. That's one of the most attractive things about the Sentra. We started at around $22,000, which is a very good deal in 2026. That is for sure. Now, of course, as you elevate up the trims, it gets more expensive. This SR starts at $25,000. This particular model has every option that you can throw on the Sentra. So we start at $25,000. We have all of the available options on this, including the premium package. $1,245 destination. We're sitting at $31,945. Particularly, I do think this actually poses a lot better of a value if you don't check every box like this model has and go for the upper $20,000 range, but still pretty good deal for this segment. As far as where it's manufactured, it is manufactured in Mexico. And if you're looking to buy a Nissan Sentra or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, the reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale reliability and the warranty. First up, let's talk about resale value. Nissan as a brand is rated at 50.56% of a retained value after 5 years and 60,000 miles, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles is estimated at 16.43%. Now, it's worth noting that is right at the industry average for all vehicle brands. However, it is going to be less than a lot of its main competition, such as Toyota and Honda.
Now, when it comes to reliability, Nissan rates right at the overall industry average compared to all vehicle makes when we take into account the latest data.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, and also part of that decision would be your warranty. So Nissan has a 3-year 36,000-mile basic warranty, a 5-year 60,000-mile powertrain. Additionally, new to the Nissan brand is 2 years and 24,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. And guys, that wraps up our 7-day review of the all-new 2026 Nissan Sentra. Hopefully you enjoyed this icy review. If you did, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I promise you won't want to miss out. We also do a lot of cool reviews, including 7-day content, as well as the earliest cars on the market at a studio reveal. So please subscribe down below. I promise you won't regret it. And if you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.